Failure, it's inevitable, especially as a dungeon master or a player in games like Dungeons and Dragons. Failure is going to happen. How do you handle it, and how do you let it help you going forward? That's what today's video tip is all about. Let's talk about embracing failure in Dungeons and Dragons. In games like Dungeons and Dragons, or any other game that involves dice rolls, that involves cooperative storytelling, that involves thinking ahead and trying to be prepared, failure will happen. It's going to happen. Every roll's not a nat 20. Every encounter doesn't go flawlessly. Every encounter isn't built properly. It will happen. But you need to embrace that failure when it does happen. What do I mean by embrace failure? Well, let's start with as a dungeon master. When you have a failure during a combat encounter, let's say, you forget you have an ability, or you forget to do something that you were planning on doing. Embrace that failure in the moment. What do I mean? Well, last night's game, I had a boss battle built, right? I went out, did up the stat blocks for the boss, and as I've talked about in this channel before, due to previous failures of mine, I print out stat blocks and highlight key things such as damage and resistances or immunities, condition immunities, additional damage or saving throws for attacks. Also, legendary resistances and legendary actions. Well, in the stat block for the boss from last night, when I printed it, I realized it didn't have legendary resistances or legendary actions on there, even though I meant to have them. So I wrote them in pen at the top of the stat block, thinking, if it's at the top of the stat block, I can't miss it, right? Well, yes, I did. First round comes, the boss goes, does 9th level meteor swarm, almost kills a couple players. The bard then casts mental prison. I fail to save. Well, the boss fails to save. Gets locked into mental prison. It's an amazing spell. I love it. Great use by the bard. 2 turns later, I realize I had legendary resistance. I didn't need to fail that spell. I could have saved. It's a boss. It should have saved. It didn't. I was upset about it. I was very upset about it because that spell locks the creature into a mental prison and it doesn't know it's there. It sees an illusion, but if it leaves the immediate area, it takes 10d10 psychic damage. So I was like, man, did they just lock my boss down in the first round after I dropped Meteor Swarm on him and started the combat the way I wanted to? The first round continues. A player died. The player got revivified with a nat 20 by the Warlock because we used Matt Mercer's resurrection rules. So revivified during combat still requires a roll against their resurrection DC. All good. Play comes back, top of the round, to the boss. And I was just going to have the boss cast Wall of Fire around itself. But then I realized, wait a minute. The illusion the boss was using, or the bard was using for the boss, was this brazier that he had stolen and that the party was sent to receive, kept crumbling in his hands. I'm like, wait a minute. He's going to be mad about that, and he's going to take a step forward, right? He's going to take that 10d10 damage because he doesn't know he's in the illusion. So, yeah, it made my boss take a ton of damage. After one round, the players had done over 200 points of damage to him. It was rough. But it worked. From a storytelling standpoint, it worked. I didn't just fluff off the bard's highest level spell. So it goes through, the creature takes the damage, but only does the 1 round's worth. I'm not locked into place. So from a storytelling standpoint, I took that failure of mine, which was not using legendary resistance, and used a story to go forward with it, to make a cool story beat and continue to fight and not be upset about it. The creature went invisible and basically was willing to give the brazier up to the party because they were wrecked. And over 300 hit points total. They did 201 rounds, so he was just going to retreat. Never got the chance to. They killed him 2 rounds later. But failure on my part led to a better story beat, led to a better moment for the bard. That big spell went through. I love legendary resistances, but sometimes, especially at these mid-tier, they're level 13, those high-level spells, they don't have a lot of them. They're not level 18 where they have a level 9, a level 8, a level 7. He's got 1 level 6 right now, maybe 2 level 6s, I forget. So legendary resistances can be a little deflating to a party. But in this case, I let it go through. Still had a great combat. Closest to a TPK I've ever come as a DM. It might not have been a TPK because the bird was looking okay, but everybody else was pretty wrecked. Like I said, 4 out of the 5 players all dropped to 0. So the combat itself was still great. Even though I failed immediately in the first round as a dungeon master, I rolled with it, took it, made it better, embraced the failure, and still came up with success. And that's all that matters. Before we continue talking about failing as a dungeon master, let's hear from today's sponsor and our old buddy, Advertising Rich. This video is brought to you by Dice Envy. You can never have enough dice, and if someone tells you otherwise, don't believe them. And the folks at Dice Envy have all sorts of dice to choose from. Polymer, metal, stone, and glass, as well as monthly subscriptions, along with mystery dice sets and dice in different shapes than normal. They also have dice trays and even inspiration coins. So, click the link in the description to go to Dice Envy to let them know the Laughing Tavern sent you. Thanks to Dice Envy for sponsoring this video. Thanks as always, Advertising Rich. Today you did not fail. How else as a dungeon master can you fail? The most places dungeon masters fail are in encounter creation, especially combat encounters. 2014 CR was useless. Much better in 2024. However, it still doesn't take into account the level of the magic items you've given a party composition in terms of skills and abilities and spells. So encounter creation is still the hardest thing a dungeon master has to do, especially the combat encounters. You can easily make a combat encounter too hard, which is what I thought I did last night with that boss battle, where it almost resulted in a TPK. But you can also make it way too easy, where they just steamroll it. A couple different ways you can handle this. Let's talk about the making it too easy. Sometimes an easy encounter is great. Sometimes the party needs to feel like heroes and just absolutely curb stomp whatever you put in front of them. Of course, the higher level party, the bigger the monster they need to just be able to roll right over. Taking care of 3 goblins when they're level 6 is not the same as taking care of 3 goblins when they're level 2, right? So, if the combat encounter is going to be too easy, you can easily fix this. You take and add minions. You add waves of creatures. Oh, just when you thought you finished off those 4 goblins, here comes 7 more, right? You can easily add in more. Add in a cool environmental effect that all of a sudden appears. A storm, volcanic eruptions, dust clouds, something appears. Create a character that drops fog cloud or something like that from the enemies. The party doesn't know he wasn't there, right? Just have him appear and drop it. And you can lock down the encounter and make it much harder. You can also go the other way. You can make an encounter too hard. This might happen, especially as you start to get to higher level play, because you're starting to have to add in bigger and badder monsters and creatures and abilities and spells. Last night was the first time I dropped a 9th level spell in the party. They're only level 13, but they play at like level 16. It was rough. Almost took out the Eldritch Knight. She had 1 hit point left. The Paladin got down far enough to where the Azer's going next actually killed her. And I was like, oh, did I make this too hard? Did I finally make an encounter too hard for the party? If that happens, you can easily remove enemies, drop hit points, drop AC, stop using certain abilities. This ability that was a every turn, or maybe it happens only once. One time, I had the party facing against dire trolls, not realizing their whirlwind ability at the level the party was at was rough. It would have been TPK level if I didn't realize it immediately. And instead of having both dire trolls be able to use that ability, only one could. And instead of being a recharge ability, I made it a one and done. So it had that big impact right at the start of the battle, but then that was it. Just like Meteor Swarm did last night. It had a big impact at the start of the battle. Let the players know that this is on now. You guys got to play smart in order to survive this. So that was great. But then you can dial back and not use other abilities. Not use skills. Have a character disappear and retreat. I had to do this once in a one-shot I was doing for some friends that had never played before. To make sure the balance was going to be there in the encounter, I had an invisible mage, greater invisible, that was solely there that if the party looked like they were going to steamroll the encounter, was there to pop in and start to create another issue that the party had to deal with. Well, after the first round, it was looking rough. The party was going to steamroll my encounter. The mage pops in and just did a ton of damage with Firebolt. It was a 5th level mage, did a ton of damage with Firebolt, and almost killed one of the players. So I quietly had that player, that NPC, disappear after that. They left. They realized the battle was not going to go their way, so they got out of dodge. And the players had no idea. The players kept looking for this invisible creature. So it had that added effect of having that, but they were no longer doing damage to the party. So you can adjust on the fly. It does take a little bit more experience. Adjusting on the fly now to me is much easier now. I'm 4 years in being a dungeon master, rather than when I was 3 sessions in. So experience does help here, but sometimes just due to basic things. Decrease hit points, like I said, try not to increase hit points too much because it might turn a battle into a slog. Yeah, it's not a steamroll anymore, but it's no fun. Add in waves, add in minions, remove creatures. Embrace that failure, but adjust with it and still end up being successful at the end. Those are the biggest ways you're going to fail as a dungeon master. So now let's move on to failing as a player. Let's start with the obvious. Your big moments come. You move in to attack the BBEG. You swing and roll a 1. It's going to happen. You're going to roll a 1. You're going to miss. Yes, you failed. Well, your character failed. Embrace that failure. Take that natural 1. Take that failure. Let it inspire your character to try harder. Or, and this is where the Dungeon Master can kick in, and this is what I had to do last night. The Dungeon Master can help take that natural 1 especially, and make it story relevant. Make it change the story. Make it so that the party has to respond to that natural 1. Did the player try to leap across the ravine and roll the nat 1? Okay, let's not kill the player, but now that player is either falling or is hanging off the cliff. What does the party do? So as a player, embrace that natural 1. Dive into it. Describe how you run and stumble as you try to jump across that ravine. As a dungeon master, come up quickly with consequences for that. What does it mean if the player rolls a natural 1? Remember, anytime you as a dungeon master ask for a roll, you have to be prepared to deal with the consequences, success or failure. Failure, embrace it. Expand on it. Make it relevant. Are there party members that have feather fall that can stop the character from falling? Does a barbarian rush up and grab the character and lift them up over that cliff? Does the rogue try to reach down and grab them quickly before they fall? So you can make it relevant, add more roles, make it exciting for the party. Another example is consequences to the player. And here's a perfect example. In last night's battle, not the boss battle, but the encounter before the boss battle, the players were crossing these molten metal magma rivers that were smelters, and they were on metal crosswalks that had very low railings, crossing from basically climbing up this cliff. And the Eldritch Knight was face to face with an Azer, which is basically a fire dwarf. The Eldritch Knight was on a crosswalk, was on the walkway. First attack, missed, I believe. Yes, because the Azer tried to attack 3 times and missed. She swung once and missed, so it was turning into the worst fight possible. Then she rolled and said, "No, that misses." And I could tell by the look in their eyes. I was like, "Was that a nat 1?" And she said, "Yeah." I was like, "Roll me a dex save." She failed. I said a DC of 15, and she rolled like a 7 or something. I said, "Well, she's wielding a big hammer." So I said, on your first swing, you miss. And on your second, you overcompensate. Overcompensate? That's a good word. Overcompensate, and you swing wide. But in doing so, you tumble off of the walkway towards the molten magma below. It wasn't too far a fall, but they immediately took damage for landing in the magma. Thankfully, that was the beginning of their turn, so they had all their movement left. So they're able to get out of the magma, so they weren't taking any more damage. So I turned that 1 into an awesome story beat. The player enjoyed it too, and so did the other players, because it added excitement. It added another level of something they had to be worried about, and now they also knew what would happen if they fell into the lava, into the magma, how much damage it would take, and just how rough it would be. So embrace the failure as a player. Embrace the failure from a player as a dungeon master to make that failure mean something. Don't just, okay, you rolled a 1. Make it mean something if the situation allows. Not all situations on 1s allow for something cool to happen. Sometimes you just roll a 1. Other times, though, the environment, the situation allows you to take that 1 as a player and a dungeon master and run with it. So do so. There's one more way as a player, one big way that you can fail. And this is forgetting to use an ability. Just like the dungeon master, just like me. You forget you can do something, it's going to happen. You're going to forget in the moment that you have an item or a spell that can be used to help. Or an ability. You're going to forget to add your sneak attack. You're going to forget to add Hunter's Mark or even cast Hunter's Mark. It happened to me as a ranger all the time. It happened as a warlock with Hex. You're going to forget to do things. Depending upon what you forgot, mention it to the dungeon master. Maybe they'll roll it back in. Yeah, go ahead and roll your Hex damage. That's fine. Or, nope, sorry. We've been 3 players past. It's already, no, you can't. It's too late. Ask your dungeon master. Embrace that failure by using it to make you just know your character better. You're going to forget things. Don't let it get you down. All you can do is try to learn your character. It's one of the things I always ask of all my players is you don't have to know the rules. That's my job as a dungeon master. You don't have to know exactly how everything functions, but you should know your character. Come to the table prepared for your character. Know your key abilities. Review your items ahead of time. Think about what's going to happen in the next session, and do you have anything that may be of use? Are you going to be on a skyship? Maybe you want to make sure you remember you have a feather token in case you start to fall, because nobody in your party has feather fall. Keep that in mind. So embrace that failure. Don't let it happen again or as often, because it's going to happen. Don't get down on yourself. You're going to forget things, especially when everything's rolling quick and the combat encounter is changing in front of you, and you were ready 3 turns ago, but now each player ahead of you did something that completely caused the battlefield to change. Enemies are gone, new enemies are there. So in the heat of the moment, with the DM breathing down your neck, which as Dungeon Masters, give your players a little bit of time, especially if something drastically changed. So I get it. You're going to forget it. You're going to misread something. You're going to totally not remember to do something. Try to minimize those times when it happens, but don't be hard on yourself. What's the biggest takeaways from today? What can you learn about failure? 1, learn from it. If it happens once, try not to let it happen again. Come up with ways to prevent it. I print out stat blocks and highlight things. Still doesn't mean I don't fail at remembering to use abilities, but I'm trying to make it better to lessen when those times do happen. Learn from your mistakes when they're failure mistakes. And roll with failure. Dungeons and Dragons is a cooperative storytelling game, but the dice control the actual outcome for the most part. Failure is going to happen. Roll with those failures. Let the consequences of that failure be part of the story. Embrace those parts of the stories. Because, yes, everybody's going to remember a nat 20 sometimes, but you can bet everybody's going to remember that natural 1 when the Eldritch Knight totally missed the Azer and fell into magma. They're never going to forget that. They may forget that the Paladin rolled back-to-back nat 20s. Well, maybe not back-to-back 20s, but a 20 is going to happen. And you're going to do a ton of damage, but it's going to be mixed in with every other time somebody rolled a 20 and did a lot of damage. But just like 20s that kill a boss are very memorable, ones that almost kill a player are even more so. So embrace it. Use failure to drive the story forward. Don't just shrug it to the side. Take it and run with it. And the biggest thing to remember, you will fail. Doesn't mean you're a bad player. It does not mean you're a bad dungeon master. It means you're a human and you're playing a game that relies on dice rolls. Failure's going to happen. Don't be hard on yourself. That's the biggest thing. Don't be hard on yourself. I was hard on myself last night for 1 round. And then I embraced that and ran with it for the rest of the combat. You have to, especially in Dungeons and Dragons. Remember, please like and subscribe. Please share the links with your friends. And as always, love each other, accept each other, and just be nice to each other.